All right, good afternoon, folks. Back cyberbullying more people with Zen. I figured I would just do a fucking random game, just for funsies. See what I match into. Normally I do just do like random queues, but then I like kind of leave if it's like something I've already played before recently. But here we get paired into a Prism, which is exciting. I don't know if we've had a Prism game on camera yet, but let's go ahead and do it. The board for this is pretty straightforward. We're just bringing our weakest links for poppers and then cutting some 2 blocks. Then we don't want sinks in this matchup just because they can kind of slow us on our pop-off turn. Prism is definitely one of the decks that can beat Zen. A lot of it is just whether or not they do beat Zen, I guess is kind of the question. I really like Needles into Prism as well because it kind of lets you threaten to go wider. And you can also kind of take them off cards so they can't like double herald you basically. But this is definitely a race matchup for sure. I'll send them good luck. Oh, never mind. Okay, so here we have a pretty decent hand. First thing to note is they're on Rapture, so it means it's very unlikely to be running auras. Second thing to note is that since they're not on Vestige, we're probably pretty fine just attacking into them and tapping out action points, maybe hitting them with the weakest link. There's a lot of options with this hand. Let's start with the 100 ones and see what they do. Because if they don't block any of this, this makes me think that they have some kind of aura they want to try to develop at the end of my turn. Okay, they are blocking, which makes sense on turn 0. One option here is to pass. Another option is to send Chase the Tail, Arsenal weakest link. Definitely debatable here. I do like just holding weakest, because we're not going to get any value out of this weakest link right now. Maybe passing priority here is just correct. Let's Arsenal to Chase the Tail just because we want the weakest link in hand for a popper. Okay, they start with the blue Herald Ravages, which is not one of their best heralds, and they're also pitching a blue. Important thing to note here, actually, they don't have... So if we pop here, we potentially give them an action point. So we're almost incentivized to not pop this. And instead, we should maybe block with, like... I'm not sure here. Maybe, like, E-Strike, Harmony Hunt. Or maybe it's like weakest link, or no, we don't want to block with weakest link. We think we want to send weakest link off of like dagger weakest link. So I think we actually block 6 here, just so we don't give them that action point. I think this is probably the correct play. Actually, probably some merit to keeping Harmony the Hunt over levels, or to blocking with that over levels, but I don't think it matters very much here since we're just going to pitch it anyways. And here I think they're IPing themselves a little bit here. Because we didn't give them that extra action point so they can potentially develop out a Herald. One thing to note with Prism specifically is that if they hit with a Herald and they're able to go down to no cards in hand, they can tutor for irritation with the Prism ability and just get a free arsenal. So denying them the free arsenal is very good. Okay, they opt not to block the needle, which makes sense. And then Prism is a deck that does have a lot of no blocks in it, so I am kind of fine just committing this weakest link to attacking. It could be incredibly annoying for them, especially if they have like an aura in hand. Although like most of the auras that they could play out, they already can do at instant speed. It's just forcing it out. They also run Figments in the deck too, so if it hits a Figment, you're taking it off a yellow resource, which is very good. So here it looks like we might actually be getting them here with this card. I'm curious to see what they do. Because if they block 6 on this, we're pretty happy with that, right? Because that means they're going to send 1 Herald next turn. And look, they are having to develop out... Okay, so they had 2 no blocks in hand, which is fantastic. This is why we bring in the matchup. Interesting that they're on Tome of Divinity as well when they're on Rapture. I don't know if you always just leave Tome of Divinity in. I thought you normally board. So I played a little bit of Prism before. I thought you normally boarded that out with like the Vestige stuff, but I could be wrong. Here they're just going to develop out a Pierce, which makes sense. So our turn's a little bit suspect this turn because I think we're just going to want to finish by killing this Pierce, just because it's so easy to do with daggers, right? The problem is that we have this Chase the Tail in Arsenal. We want to put our Ardor in Arsenal, ideally, right? So I think we're going to start off with Descending Gust Wave, targeting Prism, pitching this, and see what they do. I also always, as just kind of a general rule of thumb, I always like to start my first game action against Prism as attacking in case they Arclight Sentinel, just so you can get in that guaranteed value. Then I think we'd do a Needle, see what they do. Then we're going to probably follow up with 100 Winds at them, and then we have to Chase the Tail their Aura, which is, again, not great, but they're not really developing out anything here. The only thing they develop out is like a hard-casted Figment of Ravages, but they have no soul to flip it, right? So this is a really good spot to be in. And we'll finish by killing their Pierce, just to keep the board clear. We don't want their auras to like snowball out of control. And then we'll just go ahead and arsenal our Ardor, and we might even try to pop, like they're at a low enough light total where maybe we don't even need Traverse to kill them. Although this hand, we can get a Traverse online pretty easily, and we have the weakest link as a popper. So I think that's actually what we're probably going to do. Yeah, I think it's right to pop. And the reason we want to pop this Herald is so that they can't get Angel value. Because they'll have to play another Herald if they want to try to hit with a Herald and get Soul, which means they won't have Go again, which is really great against Prism. So these weakest links are coming in clutch here. Weakest link, very good card. The only time it's kind of bad in a Prism is if they have the Triumphs, but we haven't seen those yet, and I think that's probably Prism's like #1 card in the matchup. Pretty much, like Red Herald Triumph is just like nasty, right? You basically can't block that card. Okay, and here we have a Judgment, which is not unexpected. The question here is, how do we want to respond to this? Because we're not going to be able to play cards from Banish next turn, which is fine. The question is, do we want to like try to commit armor to this? And then we have a 6-card hand with Art of War with Sacred Art. Keep in mind that they also have their Herald of Illumination, so if I can try to bait that out, maybe with like a Sacred Art turn, I think that's better. So I think I'm gonna let this hit actually, because they're not gonna be able to get the full value out of Rapture by attacking with a Herald on the same turn they make it. Yeah, so we're gonna say no blocks here. I think we can actually play around the Herald of Judgment pretty well here. We just aren't gonna be able to pitch a Zen, which is again fine. We have other things that we can use Archie for, like Rising Sun, Setting Moon is the main reason why I'm not doing this. Because Rising Sun basically represents turning our Chi into a brand new card, right? And yeah, they get their first soul, but this is on turn 3 of the game, so like not even that good necessarily. They opt to get Figment of War, which makes sense. One thing that we should note is that they haven't developed out Erudition yet, which is very good for us. Another thing to note is that 2 of the biggest threats into Zen are Figment of Triumph, which is the one that gives -1 to everything on the turn, and then also Figment of Judgment, which can flip a card and banish for our Bonds turn. So here we're going to Rising Sun, hold Priority Preserve, and then we'll see what we draw. We actually might want to... I'm debating whether it's better to do this. I guess it is technically better to do this in response, in case we go on the bottom of Tiger for some reason. Just so we have we always want to cast this, right? We get another resource. Now we'll finally Rising Sun Setting Moon. We're most likely putting a Chi on the bottom just because we're not going to be able to use all these resources this turn. One also thing to note is we can still pitch to Zen, but we just can't play the card from with combo from Zen, so we don't actually have to get anything necessarily. We can just get another Tiger for +1, which is pretty good. And then I think that's probably actually what we do, because I want to keep 7 armor just for like blocking like a Herald of Triumph on the next turn, which is most likely when we're going to want to try to go off. So let's do this. We'll not get anything because we can't play it, right? We're just getting another Tiger. So pass. And then we'll do Tiger. We actually should have probably done this after attacking with a couple Tigers, because what they could have also done if they were very smart is like played ALS in response to this. If they play ALS there, we basically like IP ourselves really bad, but they also kind of do as well a little bit. I don't know. Kind of interesting. But we'll just go ahead and get our chip damage with Tigers in. And then we'll finish on Needle Needle and see what they do. If they flash in like a Genesis end of turn, I think there's like a low enough life where I probably don't care about that, and they're not going to be able to really do anything crazy with it. They're not paying for it? Oh, they are paying. Okay, so this now signals to me that they want to try to develop out an Angel probably just for health at the end of the turn, so we're probably going to help back a Needle now that they've committed to doing this. Yeah, that weakest link on that one turn was really brutal for them, though. That's why I'm coming around to this card over Blanche. Like, Blanche is very good into Prism because of the 7-popper, but, like, weakest link can sometimes just hurt them just as bad. Okay, and they're giving us one of their premium Heralds just to pop our Needle, which is fantastic. This is exactly what, we want to do with this card. So here we're going to send Spinning just to kind of clear out our hands for the Art of War turn. At most, they're going to be able to send 2 Heralds next turn. Oh, it looks like they're... Okay, so if they didn't do this, I wouldn't have Needled in a turn, but because they're not doing this, just to soak damage, I'm more inclined to now Needle. Yeah, we'll throw in another Needle. This now takes them off of like anything gross like double War Tune. Be kind of nasty. If they want to pop this, that is. Okay, it looks like they did have at least one War Tune. So, if their turn is just like Goliath Gauntlet into Angel, we're probably pretty set here. And again, we've denied them Soul really well this game. And again, we don't have our Needles, but we've basically bought 2 cards with these Needles, which is fantastic in this matchup. Exactly what you want the card to do. So again, we're in a pretty commanding position right now. Opponent's taking a second, maybe. I think, like, I'm not going to roast this person, obviously. I think there are definitely some plays that are, like, interesting from them. I'm not necessarily even saying they're wrong. It may depends on their hand. But, like, just kind of weak plays overall. Again, it might not even be their fault. It's just kind of, how it is sometimes. Here we now have the option to pop and also do Traverse Strides. Yeah, I think that's probably correct. The problem is we don't really have like a Go Again card. I think this is still fine. Just do this. So the way these triggers work, these will, resolve before the Phantasm. And we get to keep our Kasaya and Shuko, which again provide a lot of value in the matchup, especially since we haven't seen a ton of Transcend cards. Or sorry, we did see 3. No, that's kind of a lie. So we've seen a third of our Transcend cards at this point in the game, which makes sense. All right, we're gonna start with the Art Award, which again I'm not a fan of in case they have ALS, but if they have ALS, we get time locked, which is fine. Then we get a Harmony Orihone. So because we don't have anything like super fantastic, like we don't have a Descending Dustwave or Bonds yet, I'm more inclined to Orihone here as opposed to like tutoring for something. Maybe let's see what we hit off the Harmony first, if we do anything off of it first. Because we can always Orihone after. Okay, we hit a Bonds. Now we should not Orihone. That is incredibly greedy if I were to do that. Alright, we'll get our Descending Dustwave. The problem here is they can still Judgment this, which is fine. We can turn over our Bonds. That's fine. Oh, they're running some spice over here. Yellow Pummel, huh? Very interesting. Yeah, but they can turn over our Bonds now, which is fine. They probably shouldn't have done this right before this end trigger, just because now I can change my target. So we're probably going to Orihone actually for mana. So the question is now, what do we get off of our tutor? If we want to be safe, we can just get something like Tiger Swipe, because we know we have a Tiger. It's probably the safest bet. Yeah, I'm kind of fine with Tiger Swipe. Let's go, so we don't have a way to like effectively use our resources, so let's go ahead and Orihone now. Maybe thinking about Judgment, maybe the play was actually to Orihone instead, because we would just assume that Judgment gets flipped over. Okay, and here, hand is interesting. So, can't do everything unless the Tiger Swipe hits, which it could actually pretty likely hit. So let's do the Tiger Swipe first and see if that hits. Then that could let us chase the tail and fluster Arsenaling Stir the Pot, which is pretty decent. So if we generate a Tiger from this, it might only look like 1 value to them, but it's really closer to like 6. It's like closer to 7 value. It's like a 7 value Tiger. It's pretty crazy. Oh no, it would be 7 value, because this would come in for 6, and then that Tiger would come in for 1 on its own. So it's pretty unlikely. They have to give us their whole hand if they want to try to block this, which I think we're fine with. Alright, they're going to give us Footsteps because they have 1 floating from the Halo, which makes sense. Footsteps are going to pop. Yeah. They're going to pop at the end of the combat chain, which is fine. Okay, they have a Soul Shield, which is also fine, because they're not going to be able to play a card next turn. So now, the question is, what do we do with the rest of this hand? I think the line might be to just pre-transcend the Stir the Pot, keep in our hand, and then maybe send Fluster, so that we do like the Chase Aspect line next turn. Because we're not guaranteed to get a blue next turn. I think I like that, actually. So I'll finish with the Fluster, Arseling or Chase the Tail. We have a Chi in hand. They're not going to be able to send a Herald. At most, they're probably going to be able to send like an Angel. But they're not going to be able to like pay into Figment of Judgment, which again is The flip side of this is kind of shitty. Not gonna lie. So, not a huge concern. And they're at 8, we're at 33, and we have 4 armor blocks, so we're kind of just chilling. Okay, they do actually. Sorry, I lied. They do go up to 2 soul, so they do have the opportunity to flip Angel and attack with Angel next turn if they wanted to. Oh, if you hear that, I don't know, there's like a scratching on my door. That's Philip trying to get in the office. No cats in the office, though. And we were validated for pre-transcending our Stir the Pot because now we can find a hand with all reds, which is not ideal. So I think we're going to start off with descending, Gustwave, pitching, or spinning. One thing to note against Prism, I've seen a lot of Prisms like ask me questions on this when I do this against them. Okay, they're gonna Tome the Divinity without Halo, which is fine for us. But one thing that Prisms like they'll invite me to chat and they'll ask about is that when you attack with an attack, and then you tutor for Zen after the chain link resolves, there's not a priority window where they can use Halo to Figment of Judgment. So, like in the link step, if you pitch this chi to get bonds, they aren't able to respond to that because there's no priority for them in that step. Again, I'm not a judge, but that's at least how I understand it and how it works on Teleshare. So now that the chain link has resolved, again, they don't have Halo up, so it doesn't matter here. But I'm just kind of explaining some kind of like key things in the matchup. So they don't have a priority to respond to this tutoring at all. We're going to just go get bonds. We're going to leave the Chase the Tail in Arsenal, and then we're going to finish on E-Strike for 7, most likely. Yeah, so we're going to get our 100 wins, and then E-Strike for 7, and they're probably not going to be able to live this. Oh, they do have Angel Flip, I guess, which is fine. Do 100 wins. Now we'll finish with E-Strike for buff. And this should be the kill here. Sure. Yeah, so good game, opponent. Prism can definitely high roll you if they go first, by the way. I generally like going first in them just so I have a little bit more control. But yeah, that's kind of what the Prism matchup kind of looks like. It's definitely a very skill-intensive matchup, and knowing when to do certain things and like timings and priority windows is very interesting. I was very, very impressed by the weakest link in this matchup. That card was a house. I think it was better than Blanche. Blanche, my opinion on why I changed Blanche to weakest link is that weakest link just hits a lot more decks in the format. Like weakest link hits KO, it hits new. It was good against Prism in this matchup, right? It's good against Zen. It's just 4 decks already, and then I'm trying to think what else I run it into. I might try into Kano. I'm not a huge fan of like running 2 cost attacks into Kano, but it might be right. That might be something to test with my partner. Yeah, but overall, I'm liking the new changes to the list, and then hope you enjoyed the Prism game. I'll see y'all next time.